And as we commemorate the yearly Holocaust Remembrance Day, ILTV visited Yad Vashem, Israel's official memorial to the victims of the Holocaust, as our Lidar Gravelazi interviewed chairman of the Yad Vashem directorate, Dani Dayan, hearing his thoughts.
So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
A pleasure to be here again.
So on this eve, we're commemorating the Holocaust and the 6 million Jews that perished, at a time when once again we're seeing alarming rates of anti-Semitism globally. So on this eve, what is your message to the world?
First of all, you are factually right. When I arrived to New York to serve as an Israeli diplomat, I thought that anti-Semitism will be in a low place in my agenda. But during my 4-year term in New York, actually during a period of less than 2 years, 15 Jews were murdered, not attacked, murdered, assassinated in the United States in anti-Semitic attacks in Pittsburgh, Poway, California, Jersey City, Muncie. So it's evident that anti-Semitism is rising its ugly head again. Now, we are not in Europe of the 1930s, no. Thank God there is a big difference between the situation right now and the situation then. But there is one difference between the generation of the 1930s, Jewish and non-Jewish, and our contemporary generation. And that difference is that we have the experience they didn't have. We know it can happen. We know that if anti-Semitism is not confronted vigorously, forcefully, with determination, and defeated, when it is small, it can develop into monstrous dimensions, and it will be then too late to stop it. So, in my view, when leaders of the world come to Yad Vashem and say never again, I tell them never is now. Act now, otherwise you convert that phrase never again into a shallow cliche.
And do you believe that Holocaust education is the key to combating anti-Semitism?
Holocaust education is a part of education against anti-Semitism. Is necessary, is indispensable, but it's not enough. We need more than that. But you cannot educate against anti-Semitism without that element of understanding to which depths anti-Semitism brought not only the Jewish people, brought humanity. We were the victim, but entire humanity paid, entire mankind paid a tremendous price for the bigotry and anti-Semitism of the world.
So, as you said, our generation has the knowledge and experience, but we are approaching a time when we will see the last generation of Holocaust survivors. And this at a time when also Holocaust revisionism and Holocaust denial also seems to be growing. So who will carry on this mantle, the memories of the survivors and the victims, and ensure that it doesn't fade with time?
You're right, we are approaching a watershed moment in Holocaust remembrance. We are approaching the post-survivors era. It's unfortunate, but it's also inevitable. I hope it will take many years, but at a certain point we will reach that stage. In that moment, our task will become much more challenging, much more difficult, but also much more vital, much more necessary. I'm afraid that will be the happy hour of the denialists and the distortionists. And in order to confront them, we have to create now an entire range, an entire gamut of tools in order to do that. But there is a precondition to that. In order to prevail in the arguments with the denialists and the distortionists, we need knowledge. We need the knowledge that the documentation gives us. That's the reason people sometimes are puzzled why we in Yad Vashem continue to search archives all over the world, looking for more and more documents, because that is the documentation is the testimony of 6 million Jews that were never able to sit in front of a camera and give actual testimony. Our last achievement was the access to the Vatican archives in the relevant era that Pope Francis granted us following my private audience with him in the Vatican. But all over the world, we continue to search for documentation and then research. Research converts the data into knowledge. If we are in a sound base of data and knowledge, then we will prevail against those distortionists and denialists.
And so given everything that we've spoken about, the rise in anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial and revisionism, and the fact that this is the last generation of Holocaust survivors, are you optimistic for the future?
Yes, moderately. It depends a lot on us. But, something quite interesting happens. Holocaust interest in the Holocaust, what I would call Holocaust awareness, is growing actually, not diminishing. Take for instance the International Remembrance Day, January 27th. It didn't exist in the 70s, 80s or 90s of the previous century. It was established in the 21st century. IRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, that includes scores of nations, of governments, was established in the 21st century. It didn't exist in the 20th century. A conference like the conference that the Prime Minister of Sweden, from all people, convened in Malmö in Sweden in 2021 with world leaders to talk about Holocaust remembrance is a new phenomenon, and it will have a follow-up this year in Toledo, Spain. So I think that even, in a negative way, the war of propaganda between Russia and Ukraine, in which both sides use motives that are linked to the Shoah, even if sometimes they misuse them, shows that the Shoah, the Holocaust, is relevant, is in the world stage. The way I met during the last year leaders all over the world, in the Vatican, in Berlin, in Vienna, in Buenos Aires, in Vilnius, the heads of government of all those countries. Why? Not because I am Dani Dayan, because I head Yad Vashem, which is the flagship organization of Holocaust remembrance. So Holocaust remembrance is actually growing and is now in a central place in the diplomatic arena.
And let's hope it continues to stay that way. Dani Dayan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.